You're listening to Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to Whispers of War, show number 25. I'm your host Sil and let's jump into how was my World of Warcraft week. Not that eventful, if I'm honest. I did manage to get another reputation up. Again, I'm not one of those people who will just immediately, bite into these reputation gains and just go, okay, I'm going to get everything exalted now within the month. I hate reputation grinds, so very slowly on. I think I have one to go now, so I have the Voldenai done. And now I just need to do Talanji's expedition, which is like one quest. Honestly, it's just one quest I have to do, one daily. And I would get it, I am too freaking lazy to do it. I'm just going to wait until I get a quest to do that's not a daily quest, but a mission. That's it. Just a mission board for a reputation, and I'll be happy and lazy. And yeah, I got them all then, so yay me. What else? I spotted some really interesting news. Now, I have not found this anywhere else, but considering this comes from Taliesin and Nevertel, I'm going to assume it is completely correct. And they said that, was it Ian Hazacostas who said, okay, you can have those 50 characters that you normally have to, spread over all your servers. But let's face it, we maybe only have like 1 or 2 servers that we really play on. You can now have them all on one server. I did a little bit of, hallelujah praise to that. I was really happy because so many people who have listened to this podcast and have heard me on other podcasts know that my one thing that I always want is to have all my characters on one server, and I just didn't understand why we were limited to, what is it, 16 or I think it's 16 characters on one server. It's just fucking stupid. I'm sorry, but it is stupid. So that means that, I can completely give into the habit of creating loads of alts and probably go completely insane with all the characters on my server, but at least they're all on the same server. Now, of course, this is going to raise other issues because, I have another server that I have mostly of my Alliance characters on, which I've kind of abandoned. But, some of them are like 110, 120. Do I want to keep them there? Or am I going to give Blizzard my money again for server transfers? So, if that's the case, are we going to get free server transfers for the time being? Which I can't see happening because the server I main is already full, listed as full. So I can't see them going, oh yeah, you can bring all your characters over for free, that's fine. I just can't see them do that. But if I take my characters over and I have to pay for it, why can't we get a group discount? I mean, it is for people like me who already have so many characters that they want to move over to a server that can have 50 now. Why not give a discount code or something? Because it's not going to be for people who only have 1 or 2 alts. They have plenty of space. That doesn't matter. So, yeah, I'm a little bit like, what am I going to do? Because, and this is like a little like slippery slope I went down onto, and I thought, okay, well, if I can create so many characters now, that also means that I could actually try for all the heritage armor that we might get in the future for them. So I did a little bit of digging because I wasn't quite sure what the requirements were for heritage armor. Now, for the allied races, it's fair enough that you have to level from 1. Or actually, it's not level 1, I think it's level 20 or something, to 120. And you have to be exalted with your faction, I guess. Or something similar to that extent, and you get your gear. Okay, I can do that with all of those. So I already made a list, okay, I still need a Dark Iron. I still need that bloody wrap, though. A Dark Iron, I need a High Mountain, I need a Magar Orc, and then the Colterans and the Zandalari. I have a Void Elf, I have Lightforged, and I have a Nightborn, which I need to level at some point, but you know, that's the plan. So I would need to create a few more. I don't know what classes yet. I think I'll go for something that's easy and fun, and then I can switch or something. Or whichever has the best transmog gear, because, you know, that's what you pick your characters for, isn't it? Looks. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, considering the races that are old, and I use old in a very loose phrase here, but the older races, you would have, all you need is just exalted with your capital city for your race. So for Blood Elves it's Silvermoon, for Dwarves it's Ironforge, and you need to have a maximum level. They never said that you can't boost them, or that they can't have been race changed before, you know, because I did some race changing in the past, and in all fairness, I have no clue what some of my characters started off as. I think they've had so much cosmetic surgery, I don't even know anymore. So I'm a little bit like, am I going to invest into like leveling it to maximum level and then find out, oh crap, you know, I can't even start the heritage armor quest line. But apparently that's not the case, so that should not be an issue. But I thought to myself, well, you know what, Sil, you have so many characters, you do have a tendency to go for a certain race, trolls, but you might want to look into the other heritage gear that might come in the future. And, you know, I don't have any dwarves, not on this server at least. I don't have any gnomes. I don't have a Draenei anymore on this server. Nor do I have orcs, taurens, goblins, Pandaren. I don't have all those races anymore because I tend to stick to a certain type of race. And that's it. That I'm completely suckered in. And everyone who knows me knows that on Horde side, it's either Blood Elves or Trolls. And on the Alliance side, it's Night Elves or Void Elves. And I might have the odd human or Worgen here and there. That's really it. Even though I used to have Draenei. And I thought to myself, if we are going to get all this heritage gear, I do want to have one of every race just for the completionist in me. I am so setting myself up for stress levels and planning, but at least it keeps me busy, you know? For someone who does not raid with a guild, I think this will keep me at least busy. It's something to report back on the podcast, how much I'm ready to destroy all my characters with the delete button, things like that. So I made a little list for myself of what to create. And who still needs exalted reputation with their main faction. So I'm going to have a busy time ahead of me, so to speak. But yeah, you know what? I'm looking forward to it. I'm honestly looking forward to it. I think the fact that we are allowed to have 50 characters on the server now, well, I say now, I have no idea when this is going to happen. I hope it's going to happen soon. But it's good news. It's something I always wanted, so I am hoping that it will happen soon and I can create all the alts I want. I just don't know which classes. I guess the easiest thing for me would be like, oh yeah, just do a hunter, because hunter is phase roll. No offense to the hunters, but it is, you know, reasonably easy to level. So I might do that. I don't know, but you know, it keeps me busy. Other than the whole trying to find that main, I have to admit, I am really into my rogue again. I don't know what happened. I don't know what kind of hoodoo magic she put on me, but I am really enjoying playing her. I love stabbing things in the face and just, you know, backstabbing other people. It might be because it's a little bit of raw PvP that's going on, and I quite like that as a rogue, because I'm an asshole. And you know, I'm having a blast again. That doesn't mean, because I know that some people who are on my friend list are like, yeah, Sil, but we've seen you play another game as well. Which is true. Yeah, I have been dabbling in other MMOs. But WoW will always be my main MMO of choice. I'm always the kind of person who said it's good to try out other games. If you just want to stay with World of Warcraft, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's a game that's been there for 14 years. I sometimes need to dabble in something else in between. just so I can go, okay, you know, yeah, I like this feature a lot. And maybe that could be implemented in World of Warcraft. They might be able to change that. But actually, sometimes there are things in certain MMOs that I played, I'm like, you know what? I prefer this in World of Warcraft. And I do feel the most comfortable with World of Warcraft. I'm not going to say that I can play it with my eyes closed, and not at all, but it is that familiarity that you have with the game. And that's what I like. And yeah, I'm still enjoying the game a lot. I know that there's a lot of hoo-ha going on in the Warcraft business. I don't really know, you know, with Blizzard and everything. And I know that some people are going, oh yeah, the game is going under. Okay, I don't even know what's really going on. All I've heard, and so this is all rumor and speculation and things that little tidbits I've seen. The whole fact that I believe people they're laying off a lot of people, which is awful, because, you know, we're talking about people's jobs here, people who need to work and pay their mortgages or their rent, feed their families, or themselves. It's never nice. But some people really seem to thrive on the whole doomsayer thing, like, oh, this game is doomed and we're all going to, you know, be kicked from the servers, the game is going to... I don't know. Guys, like, honestly, I think we'll be fine. I think we need to look at the bigger picture and just see that so many people are not going to have a job, and that is what it's really about. And that's really, really sad. So, hopefully these people will find new jobs soon. And in the meantime, I think we just need to enjoy World of Warcraft and, you know, buy a pet now and again, maybe to help them out a bit. I don't know. Once these server transfer things come up, or the 50 characters per server, they will get so much of my money. It's ridiculous anyway. So that's one of the things that was in the news. The other thing, I don't want to spend too much time on it because, one, it triggers a lot of people, and two, I don't really want to give a person like this that much attention. I think we've all heard about, is his name Elvina? Not a good thing that happened. I'm very sad that this happened to young people, and I'm glad that people got caught. That's all I'm going to say about it, but I don't think we need to give this person any more airtime than necessary, because they just don't deserve it at all. And that's my take on it. So, World of Warcraft. Now, talking about drama and anything that I had with the Toxic Guild, they have not contacted me at all. So actually, you know what? I'm kind of happy. I came out of it unscathed for once. But I did ask a lot about guild drama. Now, I have some stories of my own. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to tell all of them, but I will tell you one thing. So, for the guild drama, I asked you guys, so the listeners and people on Facebook pages, what sort of guild drama they have experienced. Now, one page was a little bit like, I don't understand why you have to be so negative about things, and they immediately deleted the post. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough, you know. For me personally, guild drama is part of what happens in game, unfortunately, because, you know, you have to deal with people online. I do feel that listening to guild drama or seeing it happen to other people might make you feel, okay, this is not just me. You know, okay, you can take it to the extreme and just think, okay, well, everyone is an asshole in game and there are no nice guilds. But we know that's nonsense, because there are so many nice guilds out there. I'm part of a really, really nice guild at the moment on the Lions side, so I don't think that, you know, guild drama is something that's uncommon. So we can all at least, you know, have a bit like, well, yeah, it happened to me, but I'm not the only one, it's not just me. On the other hand, there are so many lovely guilds, and it just, you know, might prompt you into finding something else that's much better for you and a much better fit. So that's more of it, you know. But, you know, before I could make that statement, they'd already blocked the post and got rid of it. And I'm like, well, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Luckily, other pages were much more forthcoming, and a lot of people have sent me their stories. Now, I'm going to do my best to... I'm just putting a disclaimer here. I got rid of people's last names, so I'm only using first names or aliases if they've given me them. I'm going to remove the names of guilds because I don't feel that it needs to be said. The same goes for the names of those people who they are talking about. I might just call them... let's say, you know, my in-game name might be... well, no, a lot of people know. My in-game name is Talua. I would just say T. And you know, things like that. So it's not a name and shame thing. That's not why I wanted this. So I am going to do my best to not make these names pop up. So if you have submitted these stories and you're like, oh, why did she shorten it? That's why. Because I don't think people need to be... we don't need a witch hunt on any server. You know, I might say which server it was, but that's the most I would reveal. Shall we start a little bit with my own drama of over the years of playing? I have to admit that the most drama I've had was in RP guilds that went raiding. So it started off with drama of, you know, all of us, and I have to admit I was probably also cause of it, because when you get into an RP guild, this is my experience, when you get into an RP guild, you tend to build up certain relationships with people, and you build up stories with those characters. And when someone comes in, a newcomer, it can go either way. Either this person completely meshes well with the group and is, you know, being absorbed into the story, or there are people who go against everything that the people have built up and start to become, I would almost say, disruptive of the RP. Now, you can call me a geek. I have nothing against that. You know, I am a massive RP geek. And back in the day, and I'm talking about, like, this is probably 9 years ago already. So, you know, I was a decade younger, and I was probably a lot more foolish than I am, a little bit wiser now, I'd like to think. But back then, you know, my patience ran really short fuse with certain people. And this girl joined our guild, and I could already tell she was a lot younger than most of us in the guild. And there was nothing wrong with it, but she behaved in a way that started to not just get on my nerves, but on a lot of other members' nerves. Now, the GM, he was completely in love with her, which happens a lot. It seems, you know, there's always one person that gets on with the GM really well, but everyone else really, really dislikes. I'm not going to say the word hate because that's too strong. But yeah, this person. So we would be sitting somewhere in, I don't know, Elwyn, and we were busy with a plot or just an RP campaign. She would jump in and everything would revolve around her. All of a sudden, you know, the entire plot that was going to happen, she would just jump in and say something like, oh no, well, I've lost this, we need to go and do this now. And it was just like, dude, seriously? We're trying to... Okay, whatever. It just... She started to breaking up bonds and putting people against one another. It was not great. And at a certain point, I think a lot of us left that guild because nothing was being done about it, and she caused so much drama. I mean, can you remember back in the day when you had TeamSpeak or Ventrilo? So, you know, before Discord. And there was always something that she said, and there was so much crying going on as well. And I remember back in the day, I thought, you know what? I don't have time for this. I don't need to deal with a teenager. I think I'm going to go. So, yeah, I was one of the first people who quit that guild. I think other people quit as well, and then we formed our own new guild. I don't think the old GM appreciated that, but that's what happened. And I know it's a bit silly now. Looking back at it, I'm like, I don't even know if that was really like drama. I think it was probably, I think for myself at least, you know, I think I was probably too sensitive back then and too much invested into my own stories. I don't think that would ever happen to me anymore now. I don't think I would care that much. But I think that's also a thing that, you know, you grow. during the ages. And if that's the worst drama I've ever had, that's actually not true. The worst drama I've had. Okay, so the worst drama I've had was with a raiding guild. And that was because there was a couple in the guild who were so freaking toxic. And they were, I'm not going to say because they were PvPers, but they felt that they were amazing at the game because they were good PvPers. But they also felt, because they were PvPers, that they could say certain things in guild chat that others might not really appreciate. And at a certain point, someone applied to the guild and they made a racist joke. And the applicant went with it because they thought, well, if these two people who are in the guild make these racist comments, surely I'm allowed to do it as well. And at a certain point, I've just had enough. And I said, okay, can we just stop the racist BS because it's not funny? And they went off on me, those two, saying that I had no place to be offended because, you know, I wasn't brown enough. Now, I know this is a podcast, so it's very difficult to see what I actually look like. I can tell you this, I am mixed race. So I have, you know, I am in England, so my color is not as brown as it used to be. But, you know, when you see me, you see I'm not white, I'm not Caucasian. And I thought, so wait, you're saying offended because I am not brown enough? And one of the people who had said this, it was a girl, she was Greek, or is Greek. And she said, well, I'm browner than you anyway, and I'm not offended. I never thought it was a pissing contest of who's more brown, so you could be offended by racist remarks. But apparently so. And I just had enough. And the fact that the other, because I was also an officer back then, and the fact that none of the other officers or the GMs actually stepped in there and were just a bit, you know, like, oh, I'm not getting involved. I just thought, you know what, fuck this. I don't need this kind of shit, because it really upset me. Because I have a lot of friends who are, you know, mixed race or all kinds of backgrounds and ethnicities. And I just didn't want this kind of crap. And I thought if you are basically showing as a GM and other officers that you're okay with this kind of behavior, nah. You can go fuck yourselves. I have nothing to do with that. So I left, and I actually got some people, you know how that goes, you know, you leave a guild and then people start messaging you why. The one thing I do remember of myself is that I was really honest with people, and I said, well, they made racist comments. I was not allowed to be offended apparently because of it, and I just don't want to deal with it. Now for me it was easier to quit back then because I was not even that into the game anymore. I think that was probably around the time that I also took a break, and I just unsubbed, and that was it. I found out later on that that guild had completely dissolved because of more of the toxic behavior and everything like that. I think those two who made the racist comments started their own guild, which I've heard was very, very toxic, but again, it's all hearsay. I don't know if that's true or not. I just know that now I would not put up with shit like that and just, you know what, bye. I'm going to leave. I'll probably say something about it and then just leave. I have to admit, all the guilds that I've joined afterwards have not been like that. So it shows that there was some toxicity in that guild. Now you guys have said a lot about your guild drama as well, so I'm going to do my best. It's going to be a show of just me talking, but just, you know, I hope that my dulcet tones don't get too boring, but I'm going to try my best for you. So let's start with the first stories. Sarah said, it happened to my raid guild, but basically we had split off to form our own guild, to have a guild bank for mats and gold, as the guild my raid group was in didn't have access to that guild bank. Well, one of our trusted raiders, whom my guild leader trusted enough to make officer, stole everything we farmed, and almost 1 million in gold that was donated by one special member. It hurt that guy very deeply. He had to take a break after we were hit. It was a sad situation and we ended up re-merging with our original guild. You know what? From all those stories, seeing the guild bank raided is one of the biggest things that comes back over and over and over again. So you will hear a lot of those stories. But yeah, it is very sad, I think. Especially if it's 1 million gold. Come on, that's a lot of money in-game. Chelsea said, I was in a guild that got raided, and then they tried to blame me for it, since I had been the only one contributing to mats. Until they went through the logs, and whoa, I didn't do it. And then I stopped putting so many mats like herbs and whatnot in, and got yelled at for not doing it as much. Okay, that sounds like a horrible guild. So first they like to blame you for stuff because you always put things in there. And then you don't do that anymore and they find out who did it. And they yell at you for not putting in as much effort anymore? What the fuck? What is that? That is just messed up. No. I would bail now. Natalia said, we were in a guild, I won't say names because I don't want to toss more shade at them, but me and like 10 other people were in this guild and it was the start of the X-Pack and they were wanting to raid. So we go in and they just kept pulling fresh 120s in. I'm talking just dinged, maybe eye level 220, maybe 240 if we were lucky. This kept happening again and again. We could not get past the first boss. So of course to see those of us that were 350, 360, which at the time was very geared out, were like, no, we won't keep coming to this shit. So one of us who was 370 at the time with an IO of like 400 again, all very high at the start of Uldir, says he's done bringing his main to the raid. So he started bringing an alt, who was still very geared out, and he took his main out of the guild so he could actually raid. The officers flipped shit and kicked him and all of his friends, me included in the 10, one of which had not been online for a month. We were all kicked from the guild because we were sabotaging the raid. Wow. Okay, nice. That is nice, but yeah, that happens a lot. I think it's a crushed ego thing for a lot of people in guilds, especially guild leaders. Bethany said, had something similar happen at the end of my kata. At the end of kata, my guild was dying. We'd schedule raids and everyone would sign up, then only me and two or three others would show. People started moving to more active guilds to raid and the GM was getting pissed. I decided to move an alt to raid with, and the next day I came back to all my toons except the one I had moved being guildless, and a nasty letter from the GM. Oh, those are not nice to come back to, but I don't, why do you have to write a letter to show your disdain? I don't understand. Just, you know, if you're not happy, just kick him, I guess, even though it's not very nice, but don't write a letter to people in game. That's just weird. Rachel said, I had an officer quit the guild to faction change because my guild didn't do enough PvP. No big deal. Well, then another officer, she quits to follow. Okay, I'm not surprised. Then a drama happens. A few other toxic players start spamming guild chat with all these complaints that no one ever told me about. Just bullshit toxicity. One of my other officers, who happens to be my raid leader, is targeted, saying he was stalking a female guildie. He wasn't. And people are pissed at him for successfully leading the guild in PvE, when we weren't so successful in PvP. We kick a couple of people who are causing the drama, and things settle down for a few minutes. I apologize to everyone in the guild for the drama and bullshit and ask, anyone else? Well, someone who had all been close with types out this long rant about how the raid lead is taking over the guild, and I'm only the guild leader by title, so I personally kick him. My raid leader understandably logs off for the night and everything calms down. The following weekend, the group who left the guild and faction swapped decided to go to the raid on our normal raid day and camp us. This was a PvP server back then, you see. My remaining officers are not having it. So a couple of them get into a heated but civil discussion with the officers who left, and the group leaves, except for one. the same guy who claimed I was no longer the guild leader. He's being a total chod, so the guildies decide to make it a pastime to hunt him. I had nothing to do with this decision, they did it on their own. So they hunt him for, gosh, I think a couple of months, messaging his Battle.net friends to get his location and shit. It wasn't a non-stop thing. He would get murdered at least twice a week now. Understandably, he starts getting pissed that my guild has a vendetta against him. Instead of asking me to put a stop to it, the EMF accuses me of paying guildies to kill him and then threatens me and my relationship, saying he'll go to my boyfriend. So now I'm pissed and I tell him, maybe don't threaten me. Enjoy being murdered every week until you realm swap. My guild ended up swapping realms a few months later, but we still all remember good old X. Okay, that's... wow, that is... vendettas, guild vendettas, that is interesting and quite not uncommon. I remember there were some guild vendettas on my old PvP server, and I think the fact that, you know, back in the day with PvP servers, there was some real drama there. Absolutely. Amanda said, this is a short one. Amanda said, a guildie had sex with an officer's brother. It did not go down well, and the guild fell apart. Oh, yeah. That is not very good, I guess. If someone was not happy with that. Aiden said, okay, so one that sticks out to me is that I met a lady in WoW, and I invited her to my guild. She asked me if her husband could join, so I invited him too, but he rarely played. We were playing together quite often and staying up sometimes. Then one night she logged on, sat in Dal for about 10 minutes, then she quit. Her husband logged on, sat in Dalaran for 10 minutes, and then said something along the lines of, X is staying up too late and talking to someone I don't want her to. And she quits as well. I was sad, but decided not to push it. I went to check the guild bank later, and 2 stacks of fell slate, a ton of flasks, and a few other items had been taken out. I'm the only one that farms ore, or herbs, and we were still new at the time, so it put quite a dent in the guild bank. It all took place in about the space of a week. I had a screenshot of it, but I can't find it, unfortunately. Apart from that, was probably an officer taking a break, coming back, stealing most of the guild bank and quitting, which was a shame. Again, you know, you see it so much like just people looting the guild bank, and which makes me wonder if people need to be much stricter with their guild bank settings. I don't... In all fairness, I have not really... Even in my new guild, I have not even looked at the guild bank at all, because I don't feel it's my place to take things out. I probably should put some stuff in, but I haven't done that either. So, yeah, that's... I'm just wondering if permissions are still a thing for guild banks nowadays. Dwight said, back during Pandaland, I was roaming around with my girlfriend. It was late in the evening, and there were a few others on, but in SOO. What is SOO? I can't remember what that is. I'm sure that it will come back to me. A core group had been farming mats up for what seemed like an eternity to make those blasted cars and fish the 25,000 fish achievement. An argument started in the raid group among our members, and next thing we knew, stuff was being wiped out of the guild bank, all the cars and the high gold items, because of course they were the ones that put them in there. Long and short of it was they did nothing to supply any of it and were promptly instructed to return it all. Most was. The guild folded not long after. Again, guys, those mats, like honestly, guild materials and guild bank items, that seems to be so much of a drama point for people. Chris said, I have some doozies. I've been playing since beta and EverQuest before that. Also in the esports industry, but like they are really, really long. One has to deal with our next progression guild, and the leader was in a relationship with a catfish dude who ended up ninjaing the entire guild bank and disbanded the guild. I was on a WoW break when it happened, because Nax made me angry in the butt because my bliss wouldn't drop. And the guild leader hated me, but couldn't kick me because I had 6 IRL friends in officer positions, and I set up a quasi-rogue class leader to have my back. That, wow, it's just... ninjaing the entire guild bank. I have to admit, I've seen it happen once before. I think someone, well, I can't remember which guild this was. I think it wasn't a guild I was in for a very long time, but I remember someone quitting, and then people said, quickly, get all the items from the guild bank because he'll log into an alt and take all the items out. I just don't understand that drama with all the materials in the guild bank. That just still baffles me. Sin Emily said, I remember back in Wrath of the Lich King I was an officer of a guild and I was the banker rank. Me and one other person. I organized all the taps and deposited things. And then one day the other person had access, got salty as fuck towards the GM and withdrew everything. And I got the blame for it. I was mega pissed off. My god. Didn't we have logs back in Wrath of the Lich King? Because that is horrible that you get the blame for crap like that. Bethany said, I worked with a guy who got me to join the guild he GM'd, moved servers and factions to do so, right after he decided to take a hiatus. Okay, cool, I get it, sometimes you need a break. But after a couple of months he starts playing again and asks for control of the guild bank. For the guild back, I'm pretty good friends with everyone in the guild at this point, and they know that I know him in real life, so they ask me if I think it's a good idea. I tell them yes, he does a good job at work, and if he wasn't so young, he'd definitely be a supervisor. Well, that was a mistake. They handed it over to him, and within a week he'd emptied the bank, booted everyone, and deleted the guild. I played alone for a while until I happened to run into one of the old guildies and they invited me to the new guild they had made. That is horrible, but if you know this guy in real life, did you not confront him? I would have, well, I can say now, I would have confronted him, but that is so weird. I would not, if you know that person in real life, then I would not, can you imagine? So, it's a friend of yours and you're like, yeah, give me back control. Yeah, okay. And then this person deletes everything, gets rid of everything. Then why would your friend not come to you and confront you? I would be shitting myself that someone would say, Sil, why did you do that? Face to face, because everyone can be very brave behind the internet, but wow. No. Right, let's continue. Aiden said a really bad one was shortly after my dad passed away in December 2016. I'm really sorry for your loss. I decided to go into raiding and join a guild. Dad used to just want me to be in a guild with just me and him. I'm special needs, naive, the whole lot. I transferred to join the guild and everything went well for a few months. I got up to an officership position quickly. Then around March, a lady joined. Me and her hit it off right away. She was everything I was looking for, a parent-type figure. And I was everything she was looking for, someone to talk and play with to pass the time, and she was a new mum. Since she was in the US and I was in Australia, we'd talk when I woke up and it was her afternoon. Play together in her evening, and then when it was getting time to go to bed for me, she'd be waking up and we would talk some more. This went on for a few months and it was all great, but then she started asking really inappropriate things of me. I was a very naive minor at the time, and she was close to twice my age. And made threats that she wouldn't be my friend if I didn't. I don't want to get into details, but I imagine you can picture the things she'd be asking. I went along with it a bit, but I kept trying to refuse because I didn't like her like that, and no pictures were traded at all. Good for you. Good that you didn't trade any pictures. Good for you. She got tired of me really quickly after I didn't want to do some of the things she wanted me to do, and would act really mean towards me. About a month later, she went to the GM, made up lies about me harassing her, etc. And I tried to talk to the GM about it and told him that she had been doing some kind of inappropriate and bad things to me. And it made me feel really uncomfortable. The GM ignored me and told me that I deserved the things she did to me. The GM kicked me, telling me that I deserved being harassed. I ended up in therapy from it, and it's left me with quite a few issues. I still don't understand why she did the things she did, and I miss her from when she was nice to me. I don't understand what she could have told the GM that would have made him treat me the way he did either. Now, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry this has happened to you, because this is just awful. And one, I don't think anyone should be harassed in game. I don't think a GM especially should say you deserve being harassed. at all, because no one deserves to be harassed. And, you know, I'm happy that you didn't trade pictures or anything like that, and good for you that you didn't do the things she wanted you to do. But it's still bad that someone tried to force you into doing something that made you not happy and made you feel awkward. So I'm really sorry that happened to you. That's awful. Chloe said, we had a guy, and we would call him Raymond, take leather gloves out of the guild bank, which would have been fine, but he didn't use leather. So I messaged him and asked why he took them. If it was for a friend or an alt, that was okay, but next time he needed to ask before taking gear out. Well, he G-quit after that, and his response wasn't very pleasant. So I messaged the guild leader, on the level 1 tune I made to message him, of the new guild he joined, and told them he was a thief and to be careful. The guild leader messaged me back saying he wants to voice chat and see all the proof I had. I was kind of skeptical about this because 1, I'm a female gamer, and 2, I had people from the new guild that were friends with Ram and harassed me, and 3, I was scared it was a trap. But I decided to do it and showed them every piece of proof I had, and they kicked him. And 4 hours later, they added him back. Because even though I had proof, his word was more valuable than mine. Anyway, a few months later, someone, a Ramen added to our guild when he was still in his name changed, and raided our guild bank, took around 400k worth of stuff, and then he left. We believe it was Ramen because he added the tune to the guild. And we think he put all of the stuff he stole in the new guild bank because we asked the guild leader about it, and he said to fuck off, basically. Oh my god, that's not very nice. It's in a way clever how he did it, which makes me wonder if maybe the guild leader set him up to raid your guild bank. That wouldn't surprise me at all, especially if someone tells you just to fuck off. That's horrible. Yeah, more guild bank drama. Now I have many more stories, because you guys just blew up my inbox with stories and on Facebook. So what I'm going to do is, instead of me reading them all out on today's show, I will read 1 or 2 out in the following shows, so in the next weeks. So we will always have a little bit of guild drama to listen to, because, you know, if you think your guild drama is bad, then maybe, you know, seeing or listening to what others have experienced might not make it so bad. I don't know. Some of these stories are pretty bad at the moment, so I will leave it at that for guild drama. However, I do have an interview for you, so I am going to give you an interview with Jin from the Morally Grey podcast, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the flip side. And with me today, I am joined by a very, very special... I love his name already. Jin.
Yep, that's me.
I love that name. And you are a fresh new podcast host, which I love even more. So, Jin, just tell the listeners about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, as you said, I am Jin. I am a brand new to the whole podcasting thing. And by brand new, I mean about a month. We started at the very beginning of 2019. Yeah, I've been really liked the lore of Warcraft. Always thought it was really interesting. So I thought I was like, hey, I could do one of those. So that's what I do.
And we're very happy that you are. Because I've already downloaded your show and listened to it. And you know, it is on my subscription. So I keep listening to them. Let's go into the Warcraft part, and then we'll talk about your podcast. Are you Horde or Alliance?
This is a fun topic for me. I'm Alliance.
Okay.
I'm Alliance.
Why is it a fun topic to you?
Because there's a long running joke, at least with our raid team, that I vehemently hate the Horde. Like if anyone has ever listened to the Lagging Balls show, how she hates the Alliance, I'm pretty much on par with my hatred of the Horde there.
Okay, fair enough. What do you play on the Alliance side?
Well, for the longest time, I've been a Dwarven Warrior, except very recently because I became an Iron Dwarven Warrior.
Ah!
Big change there, right?
Well, I think for a lot of people it was like, yeah, finally I can play the flavor of Dwarf that I want to play, so...
Well, technically, I still can't because in my head canon, my dwarf is actually a wild hammer dwarf. But you know,
Ah.
what are you gonna do?
Do you reckon that we'll get them in the future, or?
Uh, I'm not usually one to make big speculations or anything. But yeah, if they stick with the whole, allied races beyond BFA, then yeah, I think we'll get them. But much like the artifacts, maybe that they'll just go away and they won't do them anymore.
Ah, that's true. You never know. They might switch it up, and all of a sudden we won't get any allied races anymore. It might be a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know.
So how come you started with Alliance, or why are you with Alliance?
Well, I think it comes back to whenever I play role-playing games, I tend to have a really hard time being the bad guy.
Okay.
I think the only game I actually managed to successfully pull that off was the original Knights of the Old Republic. Other than that, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna do the right thing. I don't need to kill the old man just because he's standing in my way.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. So, how did you start your love for World of Warcraft? How did you get into the game?
Originally, I started playing Warcraft way back in the 90s, the RTS, and played all three of the games. With the small exception of I didn't really play too much of the Warcraft 2 expansion, Beyond the Dark Portal. That one was really hard. I don't know if you guys remember. It's super hard, especially for like a 10-year-old because I was pretty young back then. Then Warcraft 3 came out, and I was like, holy crap, what is this? They actually have a story in this game. Because I don't know if anyone really remembers. We can get into it later when I talk about it for the podcast, but the main difference between Warcraft 3 and Warcraft 2 was the fact that they actually had the storyline, following, you did the human campaign, then you did the undead campaign, whatever the order was, and you actually followed along the path where it's telling a whole story in order. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then you ended up, and I bought the Frozen Throne expansion, finished all that up, and the game ended with Arthas on the throne. And I think I punched my computer monitor because I was like, are you kidding me? So World of Warcraft came out, and I had a friend who, so I live in California, so it's kind of fun. Is I had a friend that actually did a drive down to Irvine for the opening.
Okay.
The actual launch party of World of Warcraft, and he got the collector's edition. I was unable to attend that. I wish I could have, but because that would have been cool. But he gave me the DVD out of the collector's edition, because that's the thing most people don't remember is the collector's edition had both the giant CD set where it was like 7 or 8 discs to install the game, and one DVD that you could give to a friend as a like, hey, you should check this game out. So I checked the game out for the first month in back in vanilla. And my laptop sucked, so I couldn't really play. I walked into Ogremar because I will admit the first character I actually rolled was Horde.
Okay, that we're not judging.
It's true. I rolled an Orc Warlock. Like I was going doubly bad. But I played only for like 19 minutes there because I walked into Ogremar and was like, oh look, I'm playing PowerPoint. This is fun.
Aw.
Anyway, but to really get it where I started loving World of Warcraft, actually answer the original question is, well, Wrath of the Lich King was announced, and it was like, hey, remember that guy from Warcraft 3 that you really hated? You could finally kill him.
Yeah, I was going to think that would be a good motivator to go back to the game.
Yeah, I was really disheartened because I didn't know anything really about World of Warcraft when I first started. Like most people don't. I assumed as soon as Wrath of the Lich King started, within a couple weeks I could go beat up Arthas and be done with it. And he's like, no, that's going to be the final raid. I'm like, what's a raid? Well, you'll see. It's a big dungeon. It's a really big dungeon. It's like, oh, okay. Well, we just need to gear up our characters before we can do it. No, it's not even released yet. What? So I I didn't, like I said, I didn't know anything about the game when I first started playing. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I first started playing the same Dwarf Warrior, because that's the one thing, like, I've listened to your show. I know you like your alts.
I do.
I do not. I have literally the exact same character that when I started playing in, well, it was technically before Wrath of the Lich King, but hey, let's say it, like Sunwell was already out, so it's basically everyone was getting ready for Wrath of the Lich King. So that's when I started leveling, and I'm still playing that exact same character. So I don't really play alts.
That's not a bad thing, in all fairness. I'll tell you that now from someone who has far too many alts. That is not a bad thing at all. So
Well,
no,
I was gonna say the only bad thing about it is I don't get to like rule the economy, because that's how most people do it. Is they're like, oh, they play the auction house with like 19 characters. I'm like, I just got the one.
True, but when it comes to achievements and all those other things, at least you don't have to worry too much. At least you have one character.
It is a little weird. It's a little weird because when I type /played, it's really scary because it's that same character.
Yeah, that's the creepy. I don't do that with the character I've had for the longest. I'm like, you know what? Don't think anyone needs to see my addiction habits. I think that's fine, like it is. So we talked a little bit about you getting into the whole World of Warcraft lore and story. Now this is actually a big thing I think for your podcast, because let's just go into the main topic of this show, which is going to be your podcast and how you created it and why. Now, I'm just taking your line. These are your words, not mine. So, Morally Grey Podcast, a podcast where one huge dork explains the story of Warcraft to his vulgar friend. Now, I love that explanation already, because I've never seen it like that. And I love that. So, what made you come up with this? And can you just tell what the podcast is about, what you want to do with it?
The podcast is really about me on my own personal journey of trying to learn everything I can about the Warcraft lore, because I've always loved it. I knew all the kind of the big story points, like Medivh and Khadgar and all that stuff, but I've never actually read all the books. Like that was one of the things I was like, oh, I've never really read the books, but I started getting into the books when they released War Crimes on Audible, because I was like, oh yeah, I can do Audible. I have a long commute to work, so I'll just listen to this. So I was like, oh, this is really good. Who's this Christy Golden person? This is a good book. So then I started looking into all the other ones. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of books. I didn't know there were so many books. I first started with, I picked up Chronicle, and then I started looking into it. And when it came down to it, I've always really liked listening to podcasts too. So I thought, maybe I can save myself a lot of time and energy by going and finding a podcast that just, lays out the lore, from start to finish. Coming to find out that didn't exist. So I was like, well, I like podcasts. I'm a pretty smart and technical guy. I work with computers, as a job. I think I can figure out this podcasting thing. Mm-hmm. I'm about a year into looking, and I still hadn't started it because it's harder than I thought.
That's often how it happens for a lot of podcasts. Is you come up with an idea and it takes a while before it actually comes out there.
Yeah. So what wound up happening is the original plan of the show was just going to be me explaining the lore. Mm-hmm. And the more I've listened to solo shows, they can be really good, but these are like super experienced podcasters doing this, and I'm like, every single time I sat down with the mic that I bought and everything like that, and tried to at least start doing something, like I'd be all by myself in my office trying, just talking to the mic right here, and I'd realize I almost get embarrassed just talking to myself. So it wound up sounding super awkward and dumb. And the podcast actually got started when Fear, he was like, hey man, I like, because we talked in the early episodes that he had actually quit the game for a significant amount of time. And he's like, hey, I remember, we had fun back in WoW, blah, blah, blah. Just, it was fun hanging out with you. It's not so much that I really enjoyed the game, but I was like, yeah, well, I've been thinking about doing this thing. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And the reason I mentioned it to him, because, he's a giant dork like me, and kind of thought about doing a different podcast on a different topic like years ago. So I brought it up to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'd be down for that." So I managed to wrangle him as a co-host, which was helpful because I can actually just have a conversation with someone rather than being embarrassed talking to myself. And the other main show topic, or like the idea behind the show, was that it's like, well, I'm not a super serious guy. I don't take anything that I say too seriously. So I guess the easiest way to explain, like if I had to do an elevator pitch to someone, I'd be like, "Hey, do you like Warcraft?" And they, "Yeah." "Do you like the show Drunk History on Comedy Central?" "Oh, yeah, it's pretty funny. You might like my show." Because that's the other fun topic is since I mentioned that I do kind of get embarrassed a little bit as I'm talking, I tend to wind up drinking during the show, and it's become a bit of a shtick with the especially episode 3. That one got weird. I had a little too much.
That can make for really interesting podcasts. Trust me, I've been there. How do you do your research? Because you say it's very lore heavy, and you've read some of the books. Do you have you read more books? Do you go on like Wikipedia, all those things? How do you do your research to pick a subject for that week's show?
The main thing that I've done is I found it was a list on Blizzard Watch on their Know Your Lore section that lays out the books in chronological order. So I was like, oh, let me check this out. So what's so far in the show, what we've been doing is just kind of going through the lore from the very, very beginning, and we've just been following it chronologically. So the way I figure it out is I just kind of okay, when did this happen? What happened here? And try and piece it all together in terms of, the storyline. I think episode 4 was probably the one where it was like the most interesting, because if you read just Chronicle Volume 1, it never mentions the word Draenor really ever. But we jumped into Draenor because there's a part where, one of the Titans goes and visits Draenor, and it's like, well, there's a part in the storyline where you wouldn't be able to do that if we continue to do it. So it's like, well, let's make sure that I'm telling everything in chronological order. So that's really the idea behind it. So whenever I tell people like, oh, next week we're going to be talking about this and that, well, so we've only done 6 episodes, and I've already screwed that up twice. So I tend to just like, well, we might be talking about this unless I do a little research and realize that I was wrong. So each show topic is just, we pick up from where we left at the story and try and, the main goal is I just want to tell it from start to finish in best chronological order. We haven't made it to Warlords of Draenor yet. I don't know how I'm going to handle that because, time travel, that's going to be a weird one.
All the timey-wimey stuff. Now I know what you mean. That's going to be a challenge for you. When you look up information, do you just go by what you can find on the internet, or do you also read all the lore books that are out there? I think you have the Chronicle books. Are you interested in those, or?
Yeah, I have all the Chronicle books, and I think it was Friday. Yeah, a couple days ago. I managed to finally finish my collection. So on my bookshelf behind me, there's an entire top row is nothing but World of Warcraft books.
Nice.
I think there's on the upward 30s or something. I don't know. There's a crap ton of them.
Wow.
So we got a lot of shows to go through them all.
It sounds like it, and that's a good thing. What would you say is your favorite story so far? Which story do you really, really enjoy the most?
So the actual story that I know I enjoy the most is the story of Arthas, because that kind of just, it's like a big nostalgia kick for me going back to Warcraft 3. But I have a little bit of I guess I have to admit something here. I've never actually read Arthas, Rise of the Lich King. But I do know that that's the best story. So, because I played the game, I really liked it, and the reason why I haven't read it yet is because we haven't made it there in the storyline. I'll get there eventually.
True. You will get there, and it is. I think the book itself is really, really good. It's one of Christy Golden's better books, I think. So yeah, that's definitely something you will enjoy talking about on the podcast as well. I'll enjoy listening to that one.
Yeah. So in terms of like timeline, I'm currently reading The Last Guardian, which is also a really good book. I like The Last Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is I've made it all the way up to the first war. I've read everything before that. So like War of the Ancients,
Yeah.
that one's going to be another interesting timey-wimey one. I'm not really sure how I want to handle that yet.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of bronze dragon flight stuff going on in there as well.
Yeah, Norse Dormu trapped in like a time sink. It's weird. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I mean, in the end, it's all about the history. It's just getting there at that point. How do you do it? But it's going to be interesting, especially now with BFA coming out and the Night Elves playing such a big role again with what has happened to them.
Yeah, I look forward.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying I really look forward to getting to the War of the Ancients because I don't think very many people really know who Ashara actually is other than what they saw in that video.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, getting her back and just a little bit more of her background again, that would be, I think, very good for a lot of people to remember, because we haven't really seen much of her in that sense. We've seen the video for the Warbringers, but we don't really know what has happened anymore. It's all been shoved under a little bit, I feel, at least with all the other expansions. Do you have a specific goal for your podcast of where you would like to, where do you see yourself and your podcast in about a year? I know this is like a horrible question that they ask on a job interview. Where do you see yourself in a year with all of this?
Well, in a year, we would have put out 52 episodes. And 50, I should figure out. It'd probably put me right around the first war, maybe a little bit after, maybe it's the second war. So, I mean, the ultimate goal of the podcast is just literally tell the whole story. So it's one of those, not necessarily the early bits in the show where we're just talking about what we did in the week, but at least the lore segments. I just kind of want to put it up there so that at any point anyone can just go listen to from episode 1 till episode whatever if they really want to take the time and listen to it all.
Yeah,
just the whole story.
Yep, and I think for a lot of people that is really good to just hear what the story is about, because I think, especially for new players, I don't know if you've because you're a long time player, but I think for people who start now, it can be quite intimidating seeing the whole story, what's happened before, all those expansions and knowing the history, and I think it can be quite intimidating to get into this game.
Yeah, I actually can honestly say it's intimidating trying to learn the lore, even though I already know a ton of it. So I don't even know how you would start if you're a brand new player and don't know anything about it. It's pretty daunting, honestly. Yeah.
Well, they can listen to your podcast now, and then they can get into it at least. At least they know the chronological order then.
Well, that's the goal.
It's a good goal. Is there anything else you would like to say about your podcast before we continue with the normal questions I tend to ask?
I suppose that I should at least give a warning if you're a little squeamish with the language. Sorry?
If people listen to my podcast, I think they've heard me swear plenty of times, so it is a good disclaimer, but people who listen to this podcast, I'm sure that they can manage. I mean, you even say it in the title, right? Your vulgar friend.
Well, I should probably throw at least a disclaimer for me too, because he's not the only vulgar one.
Which is great. I love shows like that. That's so much, so much more fun for me. Okay, fair enough. So disclaimer. Let's go to Battle for Azeroth. With
All right.
Battle for Azeroth, what are you most impressed with so far?
Most impressed so far is probably going to sound like a cheesy answer considering what we just talked about, but honestly, it's been the story. And I know that people are like, oh, Sylvanas, she's mean. She's always been mean. Whatever. Doesn't surprise me because I'm Alliance biased. So, honestly, I think my favorite part of every expansion is that first opening few weeks because I'm kind of weird. I usually wind up, playing for like a good month straight, really enjoy myself, love it. And then when I, get all geared out for raiding, I just log in for raid nights because that's That's kind of what the goal is. So I love the raids too. So I guess that would be my second. What's most impressive is I actually really do love Old Ear. I thought was a great raid, and Battle for Dazar'alor. That's actually hard to say. Battle for Dazar'alor. That's been an even better raid. Like I think that was a freaking awesome.
Are you looking forward to what they are going to do for the rest of the expansion, considering how they started lore-wise with this one?
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to it. I want to see like, we're gonna see what Najatar looks like. That's gonna be awesome. Gonna go, beat up Ashara. I don't know if we're gonna kill her. I don't know what's gonna happen, but Ashara is, she's kind of been. She's gonna do something, and then we got an old god, Zoth. He's gonna do something too. I'm definitely looking forward to see what happens there.
A lot of epicness going on. What are you the least impressed with, if you had to pick something?
If I had to pick something, my least impressed. So, this was actually probably the thing that annoyed me the most was the fact that while leveling, it felt like I was getting weaker every single time I leveled up.
Okay.
That was the thing that annoyed me the most. Especially that one level, I think it was either 116 or 117, where my legendary stopped working. Like that was probably the most frustrating thing to me, especially because I leveled in war mode and I play as a warrior, and I took that one PvP talent that lets you heroic leap a second time right in a row, and I had the shoulders that let me heroic leap 3 times, so I could heroic leap 6 times in a row. Freaking awesome. And then they took it away. I was like, well, this is dumb. So that's what I'm least impressed with is we didn't get a new ability. We didn't, like, it literally felt like every single time I was leveling up, I was getting weaker and weaker instead of the opposite. I was like, well, this is really odd. That was what I was least impressed with.
No, I think that's a fair statement in all fairness, because I feel like I had it at times, and then you need to really work on your gear just to feel a little bit more like, okay, I can actually do some damage now, but I am missing some of my abilities. So, no, I get where you're coming from. In regards to Battle for Azeroth, do you have any good tips for the listeners? Like things that you've encountered or things that you think, okay, actually, you know what, guys, maybe you've not done this, you should try this, or anything like that?
I would say if you're Horde and you haven't leveled as the Alliance, you should probably level as the Alliance and just go Alliance.
Just go Alliance.
Because honestly, I thought the Alliance storyline was great. Dealing with Jaina and all that, that was awesome. But my actual real tip is actually not. It's not specifically it doesn't have to do with just BFA in general. This would just be a tip for World of Warcraft is you should actually go back to Mists of Pandaria and listen to the frickin' pandas and just slow down. Like when I first started playing this game, I went absolutely nuts. I think I was raiding 4 nights a week. Probably almost got a divorce over how much I was playing. It was pretty bad. So yeah, just do what you enjoy and don't feel like you need to do too much more. Like my raid team probably gets a little annoyed with me because if it's not fun, I don't do it. So if I don't enjoy going and grinding mythic dungeons or like mythic pluses, like I don't do it. Yeah. So
I think
if you don't like it, don't do it.
Smart way of playing the game, in all fairness, because I think that's how people burn out really quickly.
Yeah, you should talk to Fear about that. Oh my god, he goes hard and then he burns out for 2 years.
Oh, you see, that's what you don't want, especially with a game like this. Okay, I think that's a good tip. That's a really good tip. Now, this one is going to be interesting because, especially for a new podcaster, I'm really curious how you experience this. So, what has the Warcraft community meant to you?
Well, the Warcraft community as a whole, I don't really know too much because the community has just been like, the original raid team I was part of, and then the larger community I joined up with the Convert to Raid guild that I'm in now. It's been pretty awesome actually. Like I've met most of the people that were in my original raid team. We all kind of went to BlizzCon together, so it's just kind of cool that you meet these people online and then you wind up seeing them in real life. So that's been pretty awesome. And then in terms of like the World of Warcraft podcast community, I can also say you're all freaking awesome. Like really. I was kind of didn't really know what I was going to get into because I've always just been a very casual consumer of podcasts.
Yeah.
I just listen to like The Instance and Convert to Raid and all that, but yeah, never really looked into the like what was actually going on like with the actual community of the mini WoW podcasters. And yeah, I've come to find out that y'all are awesome to each other. It's been really cool so far. A lot of people have been reaching out saying like, "Oh, this show is really funny. I really like it." And I'm like, "Well, thought it was kind of crap, but I'm glad you like it."
Well, there's something for everyone, and I think podcast hosts are the most critical people of their own podcasts. You can have 20 people who say that they love it, and then yourself, you'll be like, I have no idea why these people like my podcast, but as long as they're happy, that's a great thing. But no, I think it's nice hearing that someone who is new to the podcast community, because Ocadian had it as well. Just hearing him say that, how people were so nice, and people like Ro from Realm Maintenance immediately helps people out by putting things in the spotlight. And I think it's just it surprises me always that people get into this warm nest, and I think it's a good thing that podcasters do support each other as much as they can. So I'm happy that you're experiencing it like that. So yeah, I hope that you guys will stick around for a very long time.
I hope so too, because I'm at least having fun with it. Because I guess I was just being a little silly when I said it was crap, because I'll be honest, when I'm going back and editing my show and listening to the stupid crap I say, it winds up making me laugh too. So,
and that's a good thing. That is a good thing.
So hopefully you guys are enjoying the stupidity of the show, because honestly, there's some pretty stupid stuff that I've said so far, but it's funny.
And that's what matters. As long as you're having fun, and if the listeners find it fun, that's really important. Okay, now the question that's always a bit, like my failed experiment, but I'm still keeping it in there. What would you say is your whisper? Now, for everyone who's new and who hasn't heard this, a whisper can be fairy crafting, a tinfoil hat, just things that you would like to see happening in game in the future. Basically anything you want to just put out there.
Well, if it's something that I want to see in the game, mine would be giving away friggin' Wildhammer dwarves already. But honestly, my answer, I kind of thought about this one for a while. It was another reason I was going back and listening to some of the older episodes, because I was like, oh man, I don't know what a whisper is. I should probably go and listen to what other people said. But honestly, mine would be, if you really like the show that I'm doing, if you like Warcraft lore and you think it's enjoyable, you really should check out the books, because I'll be honest, I'm telling people at least the main points that you need to know about, but if you haven't actually sat down and read the books, there's really a lot more to it than just me cracking stupid jokes and telling you about the lore. Like seriously, you should pick up Warcraft Chronicle, or if you like the Arthas story, you should definitely listen to. Well, actually, you will be able to listen to it soon, because apparently they're releasing Arthas on audiobook to Audible, and it's actually Christy Golden is going to be doing the narration, so that'll be fun to listen to.
That will be really, really cool. I might have
so I guess that's my whisper. Christy Golden is going to be doing Arthas book.
That's a good whisper and a very good tip, I think, as well. Okay, so Jin, where can people find you and your podcast if they now want to know everything about you and your podcast?
If they want to know everything about me and my podcast, you can find the podcast at Morally Gray Pod. Yeah, because that's a fun little story in and of itself, how we came up with the name.
How did you come up with the name?
Found a meme and I thought it was hilarious, so I was like, you know what, that would actually be a decent name for the show.
I like it.
Yeah, because people were going on and on about the whole Sylvanas crap, and they're like, oh, she's Morally Gray. And I was like, yeah, I'll just name it Morally Gray. That'll be good. But anyway, yeah, like I said, you can find me at Morally Gray Pod. That's where you can find the actual the actual podcast on Twitter. I'm way more active on that account than my account. But if you really want to find that one, that's just my name. Yeah, at Jared Cooster. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna for anyone. You can find it.
I'll put it in the show notes for everyone. So, Jin, thank you so much for this interview. I really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jin from the Morally Grey podcast. Check out the podcast, it's really funny. And especially if you want to know some more stuff about lore and the books, I really recommend it. So I'm just going to leave you with a few more tweets that you guys sent out regarding guild drama. Because they're a bit shorter, but I'll keep the longer stories for the next episode. So you'll get one or two more drama stories. But let's go to Twitter. So our lovely gnome, Frasley, said, Vanilla Guild broke up over DKP, but that's not unique to my guild. And I think DKP was like a major guild killer in the past. Kevbo the Everworking said, back in the olden days, had a new raid leader come in and kick a boomkin from our group because if I wanted a shitty mage, I'd go get one from LFG. Okay, so boomkins back in the day, shitty mages, okay. Nomi, the fire cook panda, I like that one, said, I'm the guild's sad clown, the joker, the jester. That counts? I don't know, Nomi, I don't think that really counts as guild drama, if I'm honest, but yeah. Don't be a sad clown, don't be a sad clown. Ali said, a guy I kept bumping into in random battlegrounds invited me to his guild. He was the leader. This group had been gaming together for 9 years. He wanted to get with me, and I kept him at arm's length and spent time with the rest of the guildies. So he ninja'd at the guild bank and disbanded. The rest of us formed a new guild, and 11 years later, we're still together. Oh my god. So much drama for you know, someone who can't get a person that they want, and then they ninja the guild bank. I think guild banks just cause for so many issues. And finally, Elisabella said, does it count as guild drama if you G-kick your soon-to-be ex-husband and keep a gigantic guild bank all to yourself if you two were the only members? And yes, WoW divorce is just as good as real-life divorce, especially when you keep all the gold and all the guild bank loot. I think, you know, even if it's 2 people, it's still a guild, so it counts towards guild drama. And yeah, I agree. A WoW divorce is just as good as real life divorce. I'm with you there. Right, so that was everything for this week. Like I said, you know, some of you wanted to have more guild drama stories, which you will get next week. Next week I'll read out a few more. But so far, this is going to be it. Otherwise it will be far too long for a show. And I don't want to keep you bored with just my voice. And of course, you know, you can always contact the show if you want to be on the show for an interview, because I would love to talk to more of you. And you can do that in several ways. The easiest way is Twitter. So if you go to Twitter and then whispers_of_war, that's where you can contact me, where you can follow the show and you can see the latest updates. Or you can email the show, whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com. Longer stories or anything that you want to put down, just write it in an email. Even though I don't mind several tweets, if that's how you work with direct messages, that's fine as well. If you want to listen to other shows or see the show notes, you can go to whispersofwar.podbean.com. And that's it. So I will see you all next week. Have a lovely time in Azeroth. I hope with not any guild drama for once. That would be nice for everyone. And just have a wonderful time. And I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.